The scandal at Horace Mann, one of New York's most elite schools, is growing.
CBS 2 has uncovered more alleged victims, and for the first time, 5 former students are breaking their silence about the abuse they say came at the hands of their teachers. CBS 2's Amy Dardashtian with the exclusive story.
They're pedophiles. Plain and simple, they're pedophiles and they're predators.
It's been more than 30 years since they graduated from high school, but these 5 former students say they're just now coming to terms with what happened there. They want to tell their stories, but they're not ready to show their faces.
I was so conflicted, so ashamed, so full of guilt and remorse that it literally took 30 years for me to be able to remember and speak about it openly.
They attended Horace Mann, one of the most prestigious schools in the country.
Getting into Horace Mann made you special just by default.
A school so selective that students felt they were literally being groomed for greatness.
You know, we were always told that we're cream of the crop, and you wanted to be the cream of the cream.
He took away my childhood. We talked about our personal lives with our teachers. They knew us. They knew what was going on with our parents who was getting divorced. So they planted seeds and they watched and they waited and they developed relationships and then they pounced.
They're part of a group of nearly 30 graduates from the 60s to the 90s who say they were preyed upon by Horace Mann faculty. Faculty like music chairman Johannes Samari, who died last year.
He did many generous and good things for me. Took me into his home when I needed a place to stay. And then when he began to abuse me, I did not want to believe that it could be abuse. I kept trying to find ways to convince myself that maybe it was innocent.
Football coach Mark Wright and history teacher Stanley Copps are both named as abusers, and many more who are still alive, like Tech Young Lin, who admitted having sexual contact with 3 students. He can't be prosecuted because the statute of limitations has expired.
I know a dozen at this point.
A dozen abusers.
A dozen
Yes,
abusers,
and
I think
counting.
I think the culture in Horace Mann was unique in that there was such a pool of abusers in one place at one time for so many years.
The chair of the guidance department of the school was one of the abusers and was actively covering up abuse by others. The chaplain of the school was one of the abusers. And so the question arises, to whom will you come forward?
It was a time, they say, when no one knew who to trust.
I now know of 2 cases where students were being abused by one teacher and were summoned to see the chair of the guidance department, and the chair of the guidance department proceeded to sexually violate them in that meeting.
CBS 2 has obtained letters from several students who say they notified administrators that teachers molested them, but were ignored or worse. The current administration has refused our repeated attempts for an on-camera interview. In a statement, the school calls the allegations troubling and upsetting and says it has terminated teachers in the past for inappropriate conduct.
Those were the teachers who were the amateurs. Those were the ones that were easy to fire.
In the case of other teachers, in full awareness of the abuse, decided not to terminate those teachers, but to keep them on and to cover it up.
The school goes on to say that it, quote, supports and will cooperate with any criminal prosecution of teachers, administrators, or others who could be held responsible for hurting children. CBS 2 also obtained this letter sent to parents last month. In it, the school says it conducts aggressive background checks on teachers.
The school could have prevented my abuse and could have prevented the abuse of others who came after us.
But these former students want much more. They want a full investigation, an apology, and compensation for what they say were years of trauma.
Horace Mann has an opportunity to be a leader, to show how Penn State got it wrong. They have an opportunity now to say, this is how institutions should tackle this problem, with truth.
Great is the truth and it prevails, is the school's motto.
A motto they hope still rings true all these years later. Amy Dardashtian, CBS 2 News.